Hello there. Today we had a walkthrough project with the teacher. It was a lot of hard stuff and a lot of thinking back and figuring out and functions within functions and all that. And I've been on vacation for a week, so slow mind today. Let's just head into it. I made, or together with the teacher, I made the Pomodoro project. So it's basically a work philosophy put into a GUI timer. So the philosophy is you work for 25 minutes, you rest for 5 minutes, you work, rest for 4 repetitions, and then you take a longer break, and then you restart and do it all over again. So the program contains the label, the tomato, the timer text, a start button, a reset button. So if you press start, will change. It says work. Then I have 25 minutes, and when it's done working, it will place a check mark. Then we take a short rest. We're going to work again. Place another check mark. Does do that until it's 4 check marks, and then it's a long break. And if I press the reset button, go back to timer 0, 0. First, we placed in that tomato here. And we learned about canvas. And a canvas here is basically something you can place on top of each other or whatever you want it. You don't need to use a grid for everything. You need to, of course, place the canvas in the grid, but you can have stuff on top of each other. As you see here on the tomato, we have the timer text. So here we import, or we make the canvas. We have a width and height. We have a background called yellow and a highlight thickness. The width and height, I guess from the tomato PNG, as it is, that size. What highlight thickness does is remove a border around the canvas. And of course, I want the background to be yellow. So everything around the tomato should be yellow. Just as the background. Then to actually import or use the tomato PNG, I needed to make an object, a photo image object, where I set the tomato PNG. I create the image now, and I place it in the middle of the window. So if we know that the canvas is 200 and 224, we place it in the exact middle. So 100, let's see here, 100 height width and 130, no, 112 in the height. Then we'd make the timer text, this part here, and we make that a variable. So, and we call it, and we use the method create text from the canvas. We place it, there was a good position, so it's an X and Y coordinate. Text is basic 0, 0, 0. We make it white and font name and so on. And then we place it in the grid. The next part was just make all the widgets. So I made the start button, made a reset button. They of course have their highlight thickness to 0 and so on, and they have their own commands. These commands I will go through soon, and we will actually start with the timer portion, the timer part of it. And then of course I have the label here, timer, and the title of the program and so on. So let's start with the timer, which is kind of confusing, but the main part of this program. The countdown timer is based in seconds, and the seconds or the amount of seconds I get from the length of the different periods. So the workmen, so I have 25 minutes and I take that and what's it called, multiply it by 60 to get the seconds. And I do it for all the breaks or the works. Let's start it. And so first I make two variables to able to change the timer text, because that's what I want to change. So here I have the line to change the timer text, and as you see I made an F string. First the count minutes, then it's the count seconds. So the count minutes is a downward rounding of the seconds times 60. So it can't be 24. So if it's 24 minutes and 48 seconds, it can't round up because it would break the timer. And it will shift when it goes below 50 or so. Yeah, it won't work. Then we have the seconds. So you take the amount of seconds, all the seconds, and you take the modulo 60 of it. And that will keep the residual seconds from the whole minutes. And then to make the timer look even more pretty, when it first reaches a value under 10, the clean, this look will disappear and will just be a 1 or a 1 1 0 0, and that's ugly for me and for most people. So I change. So we made two if statements with two f strings. So every time count sec or count minute is below 10, we place a 0 before the number. Then it's beautiful and nice. Now we go to the thing of how do we reduce the seconds in the program. Well, we use this, we call it method or function. So every 1000 milliseconds in the function countdown with variable seconds, we reduce it every second by 1. So it basically just goes down from, if we have 25 times 60, blah blah blah. Yeah, okay. So every second it goes down to 1 second. So this is the main stuff for the timer. And why it's a global scope and stuff we'll go into later. But this is the most important thing. Reduce this as seconds every second. And then we have some else statements we'll also go in later. Now when all this is done, how to lower, or when the countdown function is done, we can now continue to actually starting the timer and making the button work. This start button work. So if I tape reset, I want it to work. To make this work, we needed a way to track if it's a work session, if it's a short break or a long break. By doing that, we made the global scope called reps here with a value of 0. And this reps will increase every time it repeats the countdown function. So when I press the start, the function start timer will go on. I will add 1 to reps. And if reps has the value of something between 1 to 8, we'll do different stuff. So diff is if else statement is that if the number is uneven, it will be a work session. If it's an even number, it will be a short break. However, when it reaches the value of 8, which is 4 rounds of work and 4 marks, you'll see later, it will take a long break. So now when these are fixed, when to have a short break and stuff, we can actually fix and enter in the countdown function. So for the long break, we of course take countdown. We take it a long break global scope. Take that times 60 to get the seconds. Then we change the label, this one to a break. We change the color of it to red. And a short break does the same. We just use the short break value, but we change the color to pink instead. On our work session, we change the text to work, as you see, and that's it. It's already green because I've changed it before. Now, when this is done, I wanted to add marks. These marks, I can actually do this. One, we can have 60 here. We can have 1 here. So it's in seconds instead, so it will be faster. Let's turn it off. We'll have 25. So every time a work session like this is done, I want a mark to be added down here. There is, and that part of, oh, wait a second. Before that, how to reset it every time this reaches 0, it goes to a break now. Bam, and it gets a mark. We actually get the start timer function to proc this function, so it just goes on a loop here. So every time the seconds reach 0, we start this, and it looks for what value of reps it is, and it starts the countdown again. So that's it. But now let's head on to the marks. In the beginning, we have this empty string called marks. We want to change it so the check marks here, which is a label, gets larger. It gets more and more marks for every time it completes a work session. So to do this, we use a for loop. So for the numbers in the range, math floor, reps divided by 2, because reps is some special thing. What was it? We can actually remove this. See what it says. Got float. Yeah, okay, it's a float. That's why. Math. So make it from float to just an integer. So for every number in reps divided by 2, we get 1 mark. So if reps is 2, we get 1. If reps is 4, we get 2, and so on. So every time we have work session and blah, blah, blah. And then we just add the marks to the check marks label, which is placed in the bottom. Now, almost the full program is done. We just needed to fix the reset button. To do that, we made a reset function. The first parts here are simple. We just add it back to a normal text. I don't know if I have what I have after. We change it so it says timer, no check marks. But then the problem is, how do you cancel the start thing? Because if I press reset before I have this window dot after cancel, nothing would happen. And it will just change to this variables for a short glimpse, and then it will go back to the countdown. And how do you make this window dot after cancel? And what is this timer to work? To make this, to be able to stop the countdown, you needed a variable that window dot after cancel could look for and stop. So if we go back to the countdown function, we have the main stuff that actually did the countdown and changed the value of seconds. We needed this one to be in a variable. However, this is a function, so we just can't make a normal variable. So we had to make a global scope called timer. So to actually get this value to timer, we first just made it to have a value of none. And when the value of none then gets this value, we can now stop it with this window dot after cancel timer. Yeah, it's not easy, but it does it, but it works. And then of course I wanted to change the reps to 0 back again, so it won't start from like 5 or something. But yeah, that was today's project. It's a lot, and actually a lot harder because I was on vacation. A couple of days is a lot to forget or get slower, but yeah. And I will actually just do tomorrow as well, and then I will be on vacation again. But yeah, I will try do as much as I can when I got the time. But thank you for listening today, and have a good one.